So I've made my video all about the top 10 male actors who've never been nominated for an Oscar. Now it's time to talk about the female actors. Hi, it's Brian. Welcome to the awards contender, and are you ready? The best female actors in the business who've never been nominated at the Oscars. Let's start with number 10, Renee Russo.
The best and clearest way that I can phrase it to you, Lou, to capture the spirit of what we air, is think of our newscast as a screaming woman running down the street with her throat cut.
So again, like last time, this list is all about living actors, people who are still working in the industry, and Renee Russo has always been one of my favorites, going back to the 1990s, in films like Lethal Weapon 3 and In the Line of Fire and The Thomas Crown Affair. She always has this presence on film. Even when the movie itself isn't great, she's always fun to watch. Now, there haven't been too many Renee Russo performances that were ever seriously considered for awards and things, but I have always thought her extraordinary performance in Nightcrawler from 2014 should have gotten an Oscar nomination. I would have easily, I would say, taken out Laura Dern for Wild or Meryl Streep for Into the Woods and put in Renee Russo in Nightcrawler. That was such a complex character. Her relationship with Jake Gyllenhaal in that movie, she's got some big emotional scenes toward the end, and she's also really effective at being quiet, like in that dinner scene at the Mexican restaurant. She does so much with just a look, an expression. Russo for Nightcrawler did get in at BAFTA. Not everyone remembers that. She got a supporting actress nomination at BAFTA. That Oscar nomination potentially was close. I've always found Renee Russo very underrated as an actress, and I do think that one performance in Nightcrawler should have gotten in at the Academy Awards. Number 9, Demi Moore.
Molly, you in danger, girl.
What are you talking about?
Here's another actress I completely adore. I was born in the 1980s. I feel like anybody born in that decade really grew up with Demi Moore in the movies. She had quite a run of films in the 90s, I would say, starting with Ghost in 1990, which got into Best Picture at the Oscars and won Best Supporting Actress for Whoopi Goldberg. She's in A Few Good Men, which also got into Best Picture at the Oscars. She's in Indecent Proposal and Disclosure and G.I. Jane and countless movies we all saw in that decade. Now, after she took a break from Hollywood for a few years, she came back in the 2000s and has been in things here and there. She's never been a serious awards contender, I would say, in the last 20 years, although her most recent performance in The Substance is getting some buzz. From what I've heard, it's a genre movie, a body horror film. I don't see her getting an Oscar nomination for that, but I hear she's great in it, and I'm excited to see it at the Toronto Film Festival. No, I would say her best chance at an Oscar nomination was in Best Actress for Ghost. She got in at the Golden Globes. It was a very beloved movie that year. Best Actress at the Oscars wasn't super stacked. There was room for her. And again, I just love Demi Moore. Like Renee Russo, I find her to be underrated. I hope an Oscar nomination is still in the cards for her. Number 8, Jennifer Lopez.
I mean, some of the girls have been in like Playboy, Hustler. I was a centerfold once.
No way.
93.
So this one's tricky because Jennifer Lopez has made a lot of really bad movies. She doesn't always pick the greatest material, but when occasionally she shows up in a really strong project, she can show us what she's made of, as she did in 1997's Selena, which got her in at the Golden Globes, and she is fantastic in that. 1998's Out of Sight with George Clooney and directed by Steven Soderbergh. I love her performance in that film. And then 2019's Hustlers, which was the closest Lopez ever came to an Oscar nomination. She got in at Golden Globes and Critics' Choice and SAG and Film Independent Spirit. Like, she got in almost everywhere. and then she barely missed the Oscar nomination. She probably was in 6th place. And I don't know about you, it still, to this day, pisses me off because Jennifer Lopez, I think, is phenomenal in Hustlers. She is strong, confident, fierce, complicated, so much fun to watch in that movie. That would have been a really cool first Oscar nomination for Lopez. But the Academy was like, no, that's a stripper movie. Let's look elsewhere. And I don't know. I think she deserved that nomination. Again, she shows up in a lot of crap. A lot of like Netflix movies that come and go. And it's going to be hard for her to get an Oscar nomination if her body of work is not really respected by many in the industry. But I still think if that right role comes along, the right timing, the right year, she could finally get her much-deserved Oscar nomination. Number 7, Cameron Diaz.
It means something, David. 4 times.
Stop the car.
It's 24 hours a day. I live with this aching possibility that you might call me to do something.
Now, we thought for a few years she was a retired actress, that she wasn't ever coming back. I felt deep down Cameron Diaz would return to movies at some point, and she's in an upcoming Netflix movie with Glenn Close and Jamie Foxx. That's not going to be an awards player by any means, but maybe in the next few years, she'll have her Renee Zellweger Judy moment or something. Maybe she'll get that role of a lifetime because Cameron Diaz has proven in many films throughout the years that she is a damn fine actress, first in comedy in movies like My Best Friend's Wedding, and especially There's Something About Mary, but there are 2 dramatic performances she's given where she was in the conversation for an Oscar nomination. The first one was 1999's Being John Malkovich, where Catherine Keener got in instead. But for Being John Malkovich, you might not remember this, she was nominated at Golden Globes and SAG and BAFTA. Like, she got close to that Oscar nomination. It would have been well-deserved. I also love her dark, twisted supporting performance in 2001's Vanilla Sky opposite Tom Cruise. She got into Golden Globes and SAG for that performance, and I do think that also would have been an awesome Oscar nomination for Cameron Diaz. I have always felt Cameron Diaz can be so good in the right material, and here's hoping maybe the right project will come along one of these years and get her an Oscar nomination. Number 6, Tessa Thompson.
Don't you know me? I'm afraid I can't seem to place.
So here is a phenomenal talent who I would say with almost 100% certainty is coming for an Oscar nomination one of these years, hopefully soon. She has such a commanding presence in the movies, and she picks her projects really well. I mean, I guess you could argue some of the Marvel stuff can be questionable, but her dramatic choices throughout the years, films like Selma, the Creed movies, Annihilation, and especially Passing from 2021. One of the 10 best movies of that year, Tessa Thompson got a much-deserved Best Actress nomination at BAFTA for Passing. She was so moving in that film, so powerful, so understated in the most effective way. Her mini scenes with Ruth Negga crackled with energy, and it's like, did we have to nominate Nicole Kidman for Being the Ricardos? Wouldn't it have been so much better to have nominated Tessa Thompson for Passing instead? I just love this actress, and I do think of the 10 women I'm talking about in this video, she is the likeliest one to get an Oscar nomination in the coming years. Number 5, Pam Greer.
Now, I forgive you. Now, let's say, if I tell on you, I walk. If I don't, I'll go to jail.
Now, to be honest, this one is all about a single performance. One of my favorite performances in the movies in the 90s, and that's Pam Greer as Jackie Brown. Pam Greer is an actress who before 1997 and after 1997 hasn't really gotten a role in film that I would say got any awards buzz. There's just the one, but holy cow, did she knock this one out of the park. She is commanding, she is feisty, she is scared, vulnerable. She gets to show so many shades throughout that 2-hour plus movie. And what just drives me crazy is that she got in at Golden Globes and she got in at SAG. Like, she got close to that Oscar nomination for Best Actress. It would have been one for the ages. And instead, they put in, like, Julie Christie for Afterglow. Is that a performance, a movie anybody talks about today? Not really. I do think, sadly, it might have been a race thing because they nominated Robert Forster in Supporting Actor, but not Pam Greer or Samuel L. Jackson. And that doesn't feel right to me. Pam Greer should have gotten that Academy Award nomination 100%. Number 4, Robin Wright. So here's an actress I feel like most people would assume had gotten an Oscar nomination for something, namely Forrest Gump. I mean, she's such an acclaimed actress, going back to the 1980s in films like The Princess Bride. She's in a ton of great films and TV shows. She got like 8 Emmy nominations for House of Cards. Her best chance to date easily was Forrest Gump from 1994, winner of the Oscars for Best Picture and Best Director and Best Actor for Tom Hanks. She got in at Golden Globes and SAG for that performance in Supporting Actress. I wonder if category confusion hurt her at the Oscars in the end, because some might look at Robin Wright in Forrest Gump as the lead actress of that movie, not necessarily supporting actress. Whatever happened, I do think she deserved to get in for Forrest Gump, and by now, hello, Robin Wright should have an Oscar nomination for something. Number 3, Mia Farrow.
Soon after that, in August 1886, his son Stephen was born. 1886, got it? That makes him 79 now. No coincidence.
Here is somebody you might assume got at least one Oscar nomination in her long career. Like going back to the 60s, she has been a part of some wonderful films, and she's given some dazzling performances. To be honest, in recent months, I assumed she had been nominated in Best Actress at the Oscars for Rosemary's Baby. Like, Ruth Gordon won Best Supporting Actress at the Oscars for that film, and it's so famous. It is one of the most famous, acclaimed horror films ever made, and she got in at Golden Globes, she got in at BAFTA, but she didn't get the Oscar nomination, and Mia Farrow has never been recognized by the Academy. It's kind of weird because Mia Farrow has like 8 Golden Globe nominations. She has 5 BAFTA nominations, all for movies, but she's never gotten an Oscar nomination. I do think the main 2 she should have been considered for at the Oscars was 1985's The Purple Rose of Cairo by Woody Allen. She, of course, worked with Woody Allen in a lot of movies throughout the years, most of the 80s and the early 90s. I think her best performance in an Allen film is in The Purple Rose of Cairo. She is wonderful in that film. But her number 1 best performance of all time in the movies is Rosemary's Baby. How did that not happen in early 1969 at the Oscars? Mia Farrow should have been recognized for that. Number 2, Meg Ryan.
And she said, "I spy a family." And I started to cry. I just started crying.
Another one of my favorites, kind of like how I talked about before with Renee Russo and Demi Moore. If you were born in the 1980s, you grew up with Meg Ryan in the movies. I mean, starting with Top Gun in 86, leading into her reign as romantic comedy queen in films like When Harry Met Sally and Sleepless in Seattle and You've Got Mail, and her acclaimed dramatic performances in When a Man Loves a Woman and Courage Under Fire, and I would even throw In the Cuts from 2003 in there. Meg Ryan, for a couple of decades there, was doing remarkable work in both comedy and drama, and she should have gotten Oscar nominated for something. If the Academy had wanted to nominate her for a drama, why not When a Man Loves a Woman, which got Meg Ryan a SAG nomination for Best Actress? But right there for me at the top is her glorious performance in When Harry Met Sally. I know comedic performances don't get recognized at the Oscars very often, especially in lead actor or lead actress. But as I talked about in my recent video, the top 10 acting Oscar snubs of the 1980s, I do very much think Meg Ryan should have been recognized by the Academy for When Harry Met Sally. That is such an original performance. She is so charming and winning and funny and full of surprises in that narrative. I have always adored Meg Ryan. I think she is an amazing talent, often taken for granted, and an Oscar nomination for When Harry Met Sally would have aged like fine wine. Alright, before I get to my number one choice, a few runners up. Thandiwe Newton is a phenomenal actress. She's been doing such great work for decades. She was recognized for her performance in Westworld, and the closest she got to an Oscar nomination was for Crash. You might not remember this, but Thandiwe Newton won the BAFTA award in Best Supporting Actress for Crash. And because that movie ultimately won Best Picture at the Oscars, don't get me started, she was probably hovering around 6th place. Claire Danes is one of those actresses you would think had gotten more serious consideration for an Oscar nomination. Like in the 90s, she's in Little Women, and she's in Romeo and Juliet, and then she's in The Hours, which got into Best Picture at the Oscars. But sadly, to this day, she still hasn't gotten that one great Oscar caliber role in a movie. Same thing I would say with Kerry Washington. She's also great, but most of her recognition from awards bodies has been for TV. When it comes to theatrical films, she's really good in Ray, she's really good in Django Unchained, but she hasn't had that really amazing part in a movie that could get her an Oscar nomination yet. Catherine O'Hara, oh my god, how I love Catherine O'Hara. For me, she should have like 5 Oscar nominations by now. For Beetlejuice, and Home Alone, and Waiting for Guffman, and Best in Show. But I do think if there was one performance she's given that should have gotten an Oscar nomination easily, it was For Your Consideration from director Christopher Guest in 2006. She is phenomenal in that movie, especially I would say in the third act. That would have been a very cool Oscar nomination for Catherine O'Hara and Isabella Rossellini, who I would have loved to have seen nominated at the Academy Awards for Blue Velvet in the 80s. She is a force of nature in that movie by David Lynch alongside Dennis Hopper, who also, shockingly, wasn't nominated in Supporting Actor at the Oscars for Blue Velvet. He instead got the nomination for Hoosiers, which makes sense, I guess. But come on. David Lynch got into Best Director at the Oscars for Blue Velvet. It also should have gotten into Supporting Actor for Hopper and Actress for Rossellini. Now, she is a part of the ensemble of the upcoming Conclave, starring Ray Fiennes and John Lithgow, and is getting tons of awards buzz going into the fall. She might be on the cusp of her first Oscar nomination in Supporting Actress for Conclave. Keep those fingers crossed. And finally, that takes me to the number one choice. This woman is an exceptional talent as an actor, as a writer and director. I cannot believe she doesn't have an Oscar nomination to this day. She should have 2 or 3, maybe more. My number one choice is Rebecca Hall.
And maybe if you did and spared me for one day your hippie baloney, I would actually understand how the world works.
Okay, so are you ready for the evidence? Why Rebecca Hall is number one in this video. We have Vicky Cristina Barcelona, nominated at the Golden Globes, not nominated at the Oscars. Okay, that makes sense, I guess. You have Christine from 2016. Phenomenal work, goes unnoticed by most awards bodies. You have 2020's The Night House, which she is fantastic in. You have 2022's Resurrection, which if you have never seen Resurrection from 2022, like her performance in that movie blew me away. You have her 2021 feature film debut as writer and director Passing, which got her in at DGA, which got her in at BAFTA. She doesn't get nominated even for the screenplay to Passing. Give me an effing break. And she's also in Frost Nixon. She's in The Town. She's in Please Give. She's done so much great work in the last couple of decades. No Oscar nomination, and it pisses me off. Rebecca Hall is easily, I would say, one of the most talented working women in the industry. She keeps giving us fantastic performances. Every couple of years, she has an Oscar caliber turn in a movie. And the problem is, most of these films she's great in are small indie films. Often they're genre movies. Like, those kinds of projects don't often get recognized at the Oscars. I get it. But Passing not getting into the Oscars at all. Not for Ruth Negga in supporting actress, not for Tessa Thompson in lead actress, and not for Rebecca Hall in screenplay is just so infuriating. Do not get me started. The absolutely incredible Rebecca Hall is so gifted, so smart, so creative. I do think her Oscar nomination is coming, probably in the next 5 years, I would say. She is so good at what she does in acting and writing and directing. I can't wait to see what she does next. Rebecca Hall, oh yeah, she is my #1 choice for female actor to have never received an Oscar nomination. Thanks so much for watching and subscribing, and let me know in the comments below, what did you think of my list of female actors who have never received recognition from the Academy? Is there anyone I left off the list? We'll see you next time at the Awards Contender.